China's war against coronavirus is being waged around the country as it spreads to every province and territory. So far, the virus is winning, with the number of infections and deaths growing by the day. On the front line in Hubei province, where the outbreak is thought to have started, the challenge is made greater by a shortage of medical supplies.
With the full support from the party central committee, the state council and all the Chinese people, the shortage of medical supplies has eased to some degree. But protective suits, glasses and N95 masks are still in tight balance and have to be scheduled daily.
There's not enough medical personnel either, which the government is trying to address by sending thousands of extra doctors and nurses, both civilian and military, to Hubei. Much of the province is shut down as authorities try to contain the spread of the virus, but supermarkets remain open and the government says it's trying to maintain a steady supply of food at regular prices.
We can ensure sufficient supply for daily necessities, such as vegetables, lamb, beef, pork and eggs in supermarkets.
As foreign nationals are evacuated from the provincial capital Wuhan, China's government has started bringing stranded nationals home from overseas. The first charter flight arrived in Wuhan from Thailand, amid reports of Hubei residents being prevented from boarding commercial flights back to China. In Hong Kong, medical workers are threatening to strike next week unless the government does more to restrict the flow of travellers from the mainland. While some border crossings have closed, flights from Chinese cities are still operating. The latest official statistics show that on one day last week, almost 10,000 mainland Chinese residents flew into Hong Kong. It's that traffic that many people here want stopped. The government says existing measures to control the outbreak are working, and stopping the flow of people or goods isn't the answer. But critics say unless Hong Kong follows the lead of some other governments and closes its border with the mainland completely, the city could be about to see a big increase in infections. Wayne Hay, Al Jazeera, Hong Kong.
Let's speak to Scott Heidler, who is in Beijing. So, Scott, these U.S. travel restrictions, they're pretty significant. And what's the reaction to this?
Yeah, very significant. When you look at, what the WHO had been saying kind of through the week, and again, kind of reiterating that they don't think travel bans are the way to handle the spread of this virus. The Chinese government responded to America's move to ban non-citizens who don't have relatives that are citizens or who aren't close family members. So they said this is not a move of good faith. So obviously that was kind of a slight they felt by the American government to China here in the midst of this crisis. The American administration said it wasn't meant to do that, but they just feel as though they need to protect themselves. It's interesting. It comes at a time, we heard in Wayne's piece there that it's not just the evacuation of foreign citizens leaving Wuhan. China has a lot of citizens overseas that they need to try to help and take care of, and they're doing that flight in from Thailand. But also within China, too, there are charter flights because there are Chinese citizens who are tourists in the affected area. So they are also trying to get them out of the impacted area, obviously testing them first and then getting them to their homes. So it's a very big and difficult task to get everybody where they can be and where they should be and where they want to be. So this is kind of ongoing, not just from an international perspective, but also from an internal Chinese perspective.
So, Scott, what is the feeling like? I mean, this is the weekend. Normally, it would be a very, very busy weekend. Are people really just staying home?
Yeah, this should be, the Lunar New Year holiday would have ended technically on Thursday. Then that means that some people would have come back to work Friday, yesterday. Then we'd also see a lot more people arriving this weekend, Saturday, Sunday. And then everyone would go back to work on this delayed holiday, extended holiday on Monday. But we're hearing from the railway department here in China that 80% decline in passenger traffic on Friday and Saturday today. So obviously a lot of people are either postponing their return to Beijing or bigger cities from where they've been during this holiday with their families, or they're just staying put indefinitely. And that's what we're hearing. Right now, the government, the central government and its offices, its workers, they're saying essential workers will come back on Monday, but then anyone who's non-essential, they're delaying it at least another week for them to come back. You know, you look at Apple, the American company, they have a lot of offices and a lot of operations here in China. They say that they have they've closed their shops, and they're going to delay workers coming back into their offices at least for a week. That's something we're seeing a lot with private enterprises here. Now, you know, you look at the economic impact of this, it's growing because you have these private enterprises who are deciding to stay shut. You've got a lot of factories in Hubei province, a lot of auto manufacturing in Hubei province. Those are all standing idle now while they try to figure out how to contain this virus, while they try to figure out how long they need to keep this lockdown in place. So the economic cost is mounting as well.
Okay, Scott Heidler with the latest from Beijing. Scott, thank you. Al Jazeera's ALEXI O'Brien is in Bangkok, where Thai officials provided an update on the virus there.
They have confirmed that the number of confirmed cases remains unchanged at 19, but the number of suspected cases here in Thailand has jumped to 344 from 280 on Friday. They're not saying that's because the virus is spreading much faster here. It's actually because they've widened the net. They're now looking at people who have arrived from cities outside of Wuhan, the epicenter of that outbreak, but also Thais who may have come into contact with Chinese tourists, for example, because China is the biggest source of foreign tourists for Thailand. There have been about 2 million people come through just in December and January since the outbreak began. So if you have a look at the map behind me, though, there has been a map made up to show the outbreak as it stands at the moment. That big red circle is Wuhan and China's Hubei province, as I said, the center of that outbreak. And down a little bit here, you can see the red flashing dot. That is Bangkok. And that's because Thailand has the second highest of cases, 19 outside of China. And also authorities here say Thailand remains the most at-risk country outside of China because of the number of people travelling back and forth. But that number, 19, is dwarfed by the number, if you move with me here, of 11,300. That's the number of global cases. Most of them, though, are in China.